HR is doing a lot of processes that can go digital. Take, for example, the new hire process, or onboarding process, or expense management. That all happens within the HR department. One of the processes within the HR department is the hiring process. This can be fully digitized. So for example, if an application will be done, it can be done through the internet. You create a form, people do an application and upload their resume and an application letter, and maybe a photo or whatever. If they then apply, it automatically comes into the information management system where it's already stored in like a temporary personnel file. In this way, if someone is applying for a job and is granted to come for a visit, you can immediately see those files and work on those files from the digital repository. You can do remarks there and you can see whether someone suits or not. As soon as you go into the hiring process, you can even start a workflow because you want people to approve or say something about that person. As soon as someone is hired, you start the onboarding process. The onboarding process needs to make sure that you gain all the documents and content related to the person that has to be there in compliance to the regularities in your local country. So for example, you need the resume, which is probably already there, the application letter, a copy of the passport, maybe something, a proof of well behavior. This is all stuff that you need to store in the personnel file before someone really can get hired. So also there, this is a typical example of how you can do this digital. In this way, in this case, we call this case management because the system will exactly show you whether your case or the personnel file you need for this new hire is already complete or not. They can mark it or they can give you proactive messages from the system when it's completed or not completed. So if something is still missing, the system will give you a warning. Maybe you cannot even go into the next phase of hiring or onboarding someone because you still need a document from that person. Even the person themselves, who is not working within the organization yet, can be part of that workflow. So if they need to put in some documents to make their file complete, you can send them automated messages from the system so that they can upload it again and that it will be added to the system. As soon as the case is complete, you can finish your onboarding process and someone is ready to enter your organization. As soon as everyone is in, you need of course to maintain all the documents related to an employee. So the employee has to be stored digitally into a digital file cabinet, not only for, again, the purpose of digitization, but also again for compliance reasons. You need to make sure that everything is stored and that the right people have access to documents that they are allowed to see. If there was, like, for example, a salary raise, you gave someone a salary raise because of a reason, and that reason will be stored digitally somewhere. But not everyone should see that. Only the manager or maybe the HR person. So the rights and the security in such a system are of great importance. But also exactly knowing what kind of documents are in the system when it comes to an employee. You need to be easily able to find these documents and need to be easily go through the history of an employee when necessary. And of course, again, if such an employee leaves the company, he or she has the rights to be forgotten. That's within GDPR, and if he then tells you to get rid of all the files related to that person, you have to be able to do that. And with a digital system, you make that very easy. Another process within the HR department, or where the HR department is taken care of, is the expense management process. When you work in an organization where expenses are made, it works like an invoice. Expenses are like invoices that needs to be applied to the system and of course approved by the right persons. So if you introduce a digital expense management system, you can make sure that the user can just bring in their expenses like it's an invoice and it can go through the system for approval. As soon as this expense is captured, whether it's already digital or or the user makes a photo or scans it, it will be automatically recognized and put into the system. And because they know which user it is, they also automatically knows who to approve it. Probably their management or their team leader. And when it's above a certain limit, maybe the finance department needs to say something about it. And then it needs to be booked for expenses so that it can be paid back to the actual employee.
Giving shape to ideas. Konica Minolta.